And now we are joined by Ambassador Sanjay Bhattacharya. He is former secretary with the Ministry of External Affairs. Ambassador, such a pleasure to have you on DD India. If we see geopolitically, then the G7 summit began with focus on Russia and rounded off with a warning to China. Did you see that coming?
Yes, of course. I think what the G7 does is not only discuss the financial stability issues, but major geopolitical issues. And it has been quite evident for some time that the focus of the OECD Western countries has primarily been not only on what's going on in Ukraine, and of course, as you know, the president of Ukraine was invited to this particular meeting specially. And of course, there are great concerns about what's happening in East Asia, particularly with China. So in a sense, it was not unanticipated. But I think what we did at that meeting also reflects many of our issues of interest and concern.
Absolutely, and one of them was AI. So G7 leaders committed to manage artificial intelligence. How do you see that unfolding?
I think the Prime Minister's participation at the G7 and the outreach session highlighted three key issues. The first one was obviously on technology, because we've all realized that technology, apart from being a huge opportunity which can help you leapfrog the stages of development, which can make it more inclusive and can help you to gain into the digital platforms much more effectively, also has certain challenges. And I think Prime Minister highlighted that particular aspect and about India's participation in the global partnership for AI in that context. Similarly, on energy transition, another issue that is a corollary in a sense of the climate change discussions, Prime Minister highlighted the need to have the transition done in a smooth manner, and also to be cognizant of what the developing country or global south interests and concerns are, so that it is affordable at the same time. And he also outlined how we are making progress, which can be an example for many others, because as we know, many countries in Europe have fallen behind in meeting their targets. And I think the third issue, which was of great interest, and that is the geopolitical one, which was the salience of the growth of the global south and the importance of the Indo-Pacific. And I think particularly in the context of the latter, we see the significance of what we need to do with China also coming up.
Yes, on the China question, we've seen that there was an agreement on how to deal with China vis-a-vis its infrastructure projects, for instance. Also, the China's electric vehicle industry and the various economic means that it uses for dominance. So do you see that unfolding in a manner that there will be a strong pitch going forward from the European countries, including all the Western countries, against China? Do you expect that pressure to further build on China in the days to come?
Well, as you have seen that over the last few years, there has been a growing awareness of the kind of expansion that Chinese economy, particularly in the manufacturing sector, has had in terms of its impact on the rest of the world. And essentially what has happened is that a certain level of overcapacity in the Chinese economy has led to a lowering of prices. A lot of this has been provided by subsidies in the Chinese system, and therefore economies across the world have been affected, and many of the industries have been very badly hit. This issue of overcapacity pertains not only to the old mature industries, which would include the original combustion engine vehicles as well, but also includes the new industries of high technology industries in which the growth rate and the potential is much higher. And this would include things like semiconductors and, as you mentioned, the EVs that China has got great access, particularly in the storage devices and batteries. So I think there is a certain degree of concern that this kind of dominance, because what that does is that it not only has a certain disruptive element in terms of what happens to the value and supply chains and the reliability and the resilience of these structures, but also it has a damaging effect on the industry structure of various other countries. And therefore, although we are all part of the WTO, we need to have much more deliberate and focused discussions on how we deal with this overcapacity issue. And as you know, that in the past, there has been a certain move towards having some of the investments move out of China so that we can have more reliable supply chains. And I think that tendency will continue. But the critical element will be how technology is managed so that it becomes more equitable. And this is what was reflected also in Prime Minister's remarks when he talked about AI.
Yes. Building on that, what we understand is that the challenge in the AI domain is that there are different regulatory processes or various types of regulation in different countries around the world. The Prime Minister has been speaking about a human-centric approach towards development, towards technology as well. He's spoken about AI for all. Then we've heard from Pope Francis, who spoke on AI ethics at one of the sessions in G7. Where do you see this headed? Do you expect going forward a unified approach towards artificial intelligence? Also, is that easier said than done?
I think you're absolutely right that there is a need for greater collaborative effort. There is a lot of work that is going on, particularly in the multilateral context. As you realize, this is something in which we will need the collaboration not only of the states or the governments of the different countries, but also the industry will have to be involved, because this is an area in which the developments are happening at a very rapid pace. And when rapid development takes place in technology and new innovations come in almost every day, it is very difficult to construct a policy framework which can account for all those things that might come up. So I think we will need some more collaborative efforts involving the industry as well, so that all the stakeholders are on the table. There is a process that is ongoing, which is under the UN ambit on the data governance issue, but this is something that will go deeper. And I think there is a lot of interest among some of the countries, including the Chinese and the Americans, to see that we can have a more collaborative effort so that the rulemaking becomes more clear. For those who are at a position of advantage or lead, so to say, on artificial intelligence, they would like a more liberal regime so that they can also reap the benefits or the profits, if I may say, of the AI revolution. But at the same time, it has to have a certain human touch, so that we do not lose touch with the reality and the objectiveness of such processes, and that human interest is always kept at the center. So this balance, which will also include how we deal with the ethics of it, will also become very important. I am optimistic that at the end of the day, we will find a balance, because at the end, we will see that the states and the corporates will actually have to work together so that the mechanisms happen. Some progress, as you know, has been made in terms of our own AI approach. The European Union has made certain progress. The Chinese have made great advances in this area. And I think combining all this towards something that is for common good will take us in the right direction.
Ambassador, what stood out to you in the bilateral meetings and pull-asides of PM Modi in Italy? We saw a light melody moment as well, shared by PM Modi and PM Meloni, that was posted on the X account of the Italian Prime Minister.
So, of course, Italy has a very special relationship with India. And we've seen this happen in the past. It's a very unique relationship that we have with Italy, which is one of our larger trading partners. And also, as we move ahead, when we look at ideas like how we expand supply chains and how we have connections from India through the Middle East into the European continent, we will see that Italy and its ports and its industries will play a very, very leading role. And so Italy is a very important partner, and there is a certain warmth in that relationship which will take us in that direction. Equally important, I think, were two other bilaterals that Prime Minister had, the ones with the French and the British. with the British. As you know, they're moving into elections, but we have a very key FTA negotiation with them, and we hope that we will be able to make significant movement on that, because that will give us a certain toehold into that particular sector. With the French, we have a much more diversified partnership, including in high technology, defense, nuclear, and so on. And I think Prime Minister's discussions with President Macron on that were very, very important, I would say.
We leave it at that. Ambassador Bhattacharya, pleasure to have you on the show on the G7 summit. Still to come on DD India News Hour, South African President